Welcome back to America's Voice Live. Good to have you here on a Monday. Some breaking news out of Michigan just moments ago. Ford Motor Company confirming that they are putting on ice a $3.5 billion electric vehicle battery plant in Marshall called the Blue Oval Battery Park, Michigan. It's been connected to the Chinese Communist Party. There have been numerous back and forths with local community members. And the Michigan governor, Gretchen Whitmer, pushing very hard for this factory. Well, apparently Ford's pulling the plug on that at the moment, putting it on ice. $3.5 billion plant, center of a big fight in this country over the Chinese Communist Party setting up shop here in the United States in various places. Well, this is big news. Not sure if it's related to the ongoing United Auto Workers strike that's been going on for a week now. It doesn't appear to be related, but of course, this is just breaking news. But it is a big deal because in Michigan, there are three of these different factories being set up in different places out in the country, rural settings where thousands of acres were going to be dedicated to these plants. Again, run and operated in large part by the Chinese Communist Party. Well, the Blue Oval Battery Park in Michigan on ice as of this afternoon. That's big news. We'll have more on that later this week. Now, more breaking news. Democrat Senator from New Jersey, Senator Bob Menendez, says he is not going to step down. He will not resign. He will be running again, despite being indicted for the second time on corruption and bribery charges. The first time happened in 2015, ended with a hung jury in 2018. Today, he addressed the public in a news conference. Here's part of what he said. Listen.
I firmly believe that when all the facts are presented, not only will I be exonerated, but I still will be the New Jersey's senior senator. For now, I want to address four things. First, a cornerstone of the foundation of American democracy and our justice system is the principle that all people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. All people. I ask for nothing more and deserve nothing less. The court of public opinion is no substitute for our revered justice system. We cannot set aside the presumption of innocence for political expediency when harm is irrevocable. To those who have rushed to judgment, you have done so based on a limited set of facts framed by the prosecution to be as salacious as possible.
Well, here are those facts as laid out. They're accusing Menendez and his wife. They're being charged with accepting $500,000 in return for the senator's influence for the benefit of three New Jersey businessmen and the Egyptian government. When federal agents raided their home, authorities discovered almost $500,000 in cash stuffed in envelopes around the house, also in clothing, also gold bars, luxury vehicles, and other items that seem to have been gifted to the Menendez couple. The senator says this is all a misrepresentation of the normal work of a congressional office. I don't think so. Neither does Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Listen to what she said.
Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, as you know, has just been indicted on bribery charges. Should he resign? And what do you think of his statement that it has to do with him being a Latino?
Well, you know, I think the situation is quite unfortunate, but I do believe that it is in the best interests for Senator Menendez to resign in this moment. As you mentioned, consistency matters. It shouldn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. The details in this indictment are extremely serious. They involve the nature of not just his, but all of our seats in Congress. And while, you know, as a Latina, there are absolutely ways in which there is systemic bias, but I think what is here in this indictment is quite clear. And I believe it is in the best interest to maintain the integrity of the seat.
Even AOC not falling for the race baiting. Menendez has dug himself a deep hole, it seems, and more Democrats need to acknowledge that. We'll keep an eye on this story as it continues. Now, internal Department of Homeland Security documents reveal that officials in the department believe they have the right to regulate whatever they deem disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation, the new term, which just means they don't like the information, despite having its Disinformation Governance Board disbanded. Memos from the department were obtained by the Americans for Prosperity Foundation through the Freedom of Information Act request, but the documents were heavily redacted. The memos detailed the authority by which DHS believed it had the right to launch the censorship board, but The department redacted what the authority was. DHS says the redactions are justified because they're related to techniques and procedures for law enforcement, meaning the department was willing to get the police involved in free speech that the department did not like. All right. Former Secretary of State and election denier Hillary Clinton. She will not give up on the Russian collusion hoax narrative. I mean, she has to blame somebody for her loss. In a Meet the Press interview with former Press Secretary Jen Psaki, the two spent a segment fear-mongering about the chances of Vladimir Putin's interference in our elections. Listen to this.
Vladimir Putin has obviously your friend and mine.
Yes, indeed.
He has intervened in our election in the past.
Right.
It's not something, as you experienced firsthand, it's not something we talk about a lot. Do you fear that that is something that could be happening for 2024? And do you think we should be talking about it more?
Well, I think we should be talking about it more because I don't think, despite all of the deniers, there's any doubt that he interfered in our election. And I fear that, the Russians have proved themselves to be quite adept at interfering. And if he has a chance, he'll do it again.
It's remarkable, isn't it? Hillary didn't stop there. She went even further to suggest that Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's twin. Yeah, using all the Democrat buzzwords she could possibly think of. Here's more.
Part of the challenge is to continue to explain to the American public that, the kind of leader Putin is, this authoritarian dictator who literally kills his opposition, kills journalists, poisons people who disagree with him, invades other country, interferes with our election. That is part of the alternative we have to reject in this election. We have to reject authoritarianism. We have to reject a kind of creeping fascism almost of people who are really ready to turn over their thinking, their votes to wannabe dictators.
If she didn't use words like fascism and dictator and all this other sensational language, it wouldn't really be Hillary Clinton, now would it? Of course not. Border Patrol has confirmed at least 3 cases of tuberculosis among migrants in the El Paso sector now. The bacterial disease is mostly transmitted, and the particles released when someone coughs or sneezes and can be dormant in a person's body for years and years. Now, 90% of people with TB are non-symptomatic, suggesting that those 3 confirmed cases could be representative of a much larger number. Infectious disease is just one of the many concerns coming out of the hundreds of thousands of migrants crossing our border. 11,000 just yesterday. 11,000. Unheard of numbers. Immigration applicants with communicable diseases are considered inadmissible to the U.S., but obviously undocumented illegals aren't being routinely screened when they step foot inside the country. They're not being screened at all. Tuberculosis and STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, are on the rise in this country. In some places, it's epidemic proportions, and an out-of-control border crisis is surely contributing to that dilemma. Speaking of the border crisis, Democrat Mayor of El Paso, Oscar Leeser, he's finally acknowledging the effects of an open border on his city, declaring a state of emergency. The city has seen over 2,000 migrants cross over its border per day in recent months. Leeser says, quote, "The city of El Paso only has so many resources, and we have come to a breaking point right now," adding the quote, "This is something that we've been prepared for, but these numbers have really escalated a lot quicker than we ever anticipated. The city is preparing to open a new shelter, but it won't even be able to scratch the surface of a population that is largely displaced. They have no place to live. They have no job. They have no food. They need services." The city has also chartered 5 buses to move migrants to various cities of their choice, like New York's, Chicago, and Denver. Eagle Pass Mayor Democrat Rolando Salinas has also declared a state of emergency after 5,000 migrants crossed into a city in just one day. Wow, it just never ends. Meanwhile, north of the border, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is in hot water after meeting with and then publicly honoring a Ukrainian veteran who allegedly fought in a Nazi division during World War II. In fact, it's pretty well documented that he did, and it happened. And the Canadian Parliament gave this man a standing ovation. 98-year-old Yaroslav Hunka received a bipartisan standing ovation from Canada's Parliament on the floor of the House of Commons after being recognized shortly after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed Canada for the first time. There's a connection here, isn't there? Hunter was introduced by Canada's House Speaker Anthony Rota as a, quote, Ukrainian-Canadian veteran from the Second World War who fought for Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today. But apparently no one bothered to ask which country he was actually fighting with or for. Canadian opposition leader Pierre Poilievre says Trudeau should personally apologize and avoid passing the blame, considering his personal protocol office was responsible for vetting the guest before his introduction, claiming no other parliamentarians would have had the opportunity to learn about Hunter's past before he was honored on the House floor. Let's see here. Virginia teachers assigned their 7th grade English class a book list on heated topics, including social justice, racism, and identity politics. The Daily Caller reported the list specifies 8 core concepts: identity, community, the unknown, loyalty, justice, ethics, perspective, and change. A parent interviewed by the Daily Caller, a Chinese immigrant who has compared the list to the Chinese communist regime and the indoctrination it pushed. No matter the subject, everything was political and everyone was a screw in the political machine. The syllabus includes the book Stamped, Racism, Anti-Racism, and You by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, that is, who believes every white person is inherently racist. Kendi's book claims, quote, the construct of race has always been used to gain and keep power, to create dynamics that separate and silence. The parent told the Daily Caller she didn't think teaching 7th graders a curriculum that integrates ideology and identity on the taxpayer's dime and promotes the teacher's political agenda was correct for junior high school students. Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. A Bush era federal district judge, Robert Benitez, wrote a 71-page decision overturning California's law that banned high-capacity magazines on pistols and sporting rifles. California's Prop 63, originally passed in 2016, it banned the possession of any magazine holding more than 16 rounds. Benitez argued the government's solution to a few armed individuals involves passing a law that turns responsible, law-abiding citizens seeking larger magazines for self-defense into criminals, infringes upon the Second Amendment and the freedom it represents. The decision states in part, it is our duty as judges to interpret the Constitution based on the text and original understanding of the relevant provisions, not on public policy considerations, or worse, fear of public opprobrium and criticism from political branches, that is. Currently, 14 states have bans on magazines with more than 10 rounds, potentially leading to the prosecution of law-abiding citizens for possessing high-capacity magazines. All right. We'll get back to the news after a break and a message from our sponsor, our good friends at Birch Gold. Speaking of Vladimir Putin, he called the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance objective and irreversible during the recent BRICS summit in South Africa. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa all got together. They formally agreed to use local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. It's the first shoe to drop. As demand for the dollar weakens, the buying power of the dollar weakens as well. That is why Birch Gold Group is busier than ever. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold held in a tax-sheltered IRA. Text America to 989898 for your free information kit on gold. With thousands of happy customers, an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, you can count on Birch Gold to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries, digital currency, and central banks, arm yourself with information on how to protect your savings. Text America to 989898. Claim your free information kit right now. All right, after the break, in this abbreviated version of AVL, we'll have a story that reminds you of how America is wonderful, plus your answers to the America's Voice question of the day. Are there any political polls that you trust? If so, which ones?